Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to this showcase session. I'm Demetrio Navarro. I'm a producer, a recording engineer, songwriter, and arranger, a singer, and a keyboard player too. In my recording studio, which is called Navarro Land Music, I've released 15 albums for various artists here in town, 20 singles, um, about 3 or 4 other smaller sound projects, including spoken word and restoration projects. And I've won 3 songwriting competitions in the past, but nothing recently. So I played a couple of bands here in town as well. So what does a producer do? Well, he or she orchestrates all the parts that are needed to get a song recorded. And that can be hiring musicians, getting things played, getting the recording process done, and even coaching the musicians as they're in the studio, because it can be a little bit of either a powder keg or a pressure environment if there's money involved. And also, I use my musical knowledge and knowledge of theory and how things are done musically, and also to be a purveyor of musical taste. So we can be making songs that are along the lines of the current trends in music, or we could go sideways from it and do something kind of new. For this showcase session, I worked with this artist named Shareef. He's a Lebanese by descent. He had a music career about 20 years ago in the Middle East, and kind of fell away from it after a while, probably to get a good paying job to support a family or whatever his story was. But he's a hip hop singer. He's a rapper. And currently he manages a tow truck company for his uncle, and he has several guys under him. Part of the tow truck business is to buy and sell used cars. So he scans want ads, or if people phone him to say, hey, I got a car that I need to get off of my property. And so he'll go and he'll offer them some money, and then also take it off of their hands and tow it off their lot, and then take it to and flip it and give it to a junkyard for parts or for scrap metal. And they're probably part of this global network where scrap metal gets shipped overseas and gets used for other purposes. Some of it might be military equipment. So you'll learn some of this along the way. He found an ad that I put on Kijiji for I was selling my older daughter's car, and that interested him. But then he saw some of my other ads, which was some equipment, and he surmised that I had a recording studio. And sure enough, I said yes. And he goes, well, "Do you want to record some of my music?" And I said, "Sure, I'm available for that." So he has no formal music theory background, but he does have recording experience. The album, it became an album, and this album's called Gourmet, and it's about food. It's a bit of a novelty album. It was just released a few weeks ago, 16 songs on it. There we go. And how did we arrive at the food topic? Well, it kind of evolved. We've done already a couple of songs with I did a couple of songs for him, and they were standard hip hop songs. They were songs about flashing your money around, taking no less than 100K to do a show, doing stuff in the back of the lack, right? Back of the Cadillac. So pretty standard stuff. And then we had a couple of songs released as singles. And then one session, we were starting to demo a new song. He was doing his regular lyrics, and he managed to say shawarma in it, right? And I said, what was that? He said, I don't know, I was hungry. So I said, yeah, wouldn't it be funny if we did a whole song about shawarma? And then he came back next week or so and said, I wrote a song about shawarma. It was really the lyrics. By song, it's very loose. And I said, that's funny. And I said, that's kind of stupid to do this, right? But I'll flesh the whole song out for you, and let's kind of do it. And we did more of them. And it ended up, the whole album started having these catchphrases that he would use. And for instance, give me that food item, right? He'd say hummus a lot. He'd say Abu Shawarma a lot. That means Mr. Shawarma. He mentioned Wisterma, And what's that? I think, from what I can gather, I think it's a garlic sauce. And he said garlic sauce even as well. Falafels and chicken and all that stuff. And so, and as a producer, you kind of watch out for these small things that you want to cultivate it. And if it's an idea, then you want to sort of grow it a little bit, even though they're an oddball idea. But especially for something that's potentially a novelty piece, you still want to develop it as a serious piece, right? So the term is really to don't play to the gag, meaning if I were to say a lyric chicken, I wouldn't put a chicken sound on top of it, right? Because that's just stupid. If you're playing the gag, and you want to just treat it as any old serious piece, so that if I were to replace the lyrics of any of these songs with something that was, about love or about something you own or a relationship, then it would still stand on its own as a regular piece. So now I've done this sort of this has happened to me a couple of times in the past. There was another artist that found my studio, liked the vibe, and wanted to come and record. He didn't have a purpose of releasing anything or having an album, but he just wanted a place to record. And so he hired me out every Monday, faithfully, every Monday night, 9 o'clock. He'd come in and record for 4, 5, 6 hours into the middle of the night. And he'd sit there with his guitar, and I'd put a mic in front of him, and he would record, I don't want to say ramblings, but his song ideas. They're really just song ideas. And we went on for a couple of months doing this, right? And nothing really came of it until I happened to be awake when he was playing, and he played something, and I said, "What's that?" He played just the way that he sung something and the melody that he did and his chord progressions for his guitar. And I hadn't had him listen. I said, "This is something that we want to develop." So he went away and developed the song a little more around it, and then we eventually became this 5-minute piece that was really great melody on the song, and it became 2 albums worth and almost a third album of music. So until his situation changed. So it's good to be vigilant about these kind of ideas in a creative environment, because you never know what they can lead to. So what I'm going to talk about in particular is this one song called Espresso. So we were done the album. I was already starting to do the artwork on the album. We had 15 songs. And my wife says to me, you don't have any songs about drinks. And I said, you're right. And so I went to Shareef. And by the way, Shareef's real name is Sam House. But that's his stage name, Shareef. I said, we don't have any songs about drinks. And he said, and he's dry. And I said, he goes, well, what could we write about? He goes, yeah, we don't have anything that's about drinks. So he went away. The next week he said, I got a couple songs. I have a song about mac and cheese and espresso. And I said, oh, well, that's good. Let's go to the espresso one, because it's you never know. It's the next best thing to having a song about alcohol or whatever. You can sing about water, I suppose. But there's also a potentially large audience for espresso. The concern was, as Sylvia mentioned, there is an existing song called Espresso by a big name artist called Sabrina Carpenter. She's under the Universal Music distribution, and Island Records is her label imprint. So she's a big deal. So I was told about it, but I hadn't really heard the song. And so I worked on Shareef's song a little bit, and before I listened to Sabrina Carpenter's, just so I wouldn't be influenced by it. And it turned out that the songs are quite different, except for one aspect for it. So hers is a female vocal, ours is male vocals in there. The chord progressions are totally different. The tempos, though, are very similar. Ours is 103 beats a minute, hers is 104. Tempo is one of the things that if somebody's listening casually, they'll say there's a lot of similarities between that song. So, and the other thing, the instrumentation is very different on there. And her topic on her espresso song is about an ex, where we're actually singing about the coffee, the drink. So in the end, they were very different songs. So we had no danger of being sued for copyright infringement. Ours isn't even an homage to hers in any way, so it's very different. So that's a good thing. How did we build the song? So our first session, and this is how we worked for this whole album. It's different from other albums that I've worked on where there's actually melody and chord progressions and all that. So Sam comes in with his notebook, and he's been jotting down notes about the topic that he wants to sing about for the last few days as he's picking cars up and towing cars and all this. And he's got everything in his notebook. And we go to this one. I have a lot of drum machines, but we go to this one in particular. It's a Roland MC909. It's a big one, but it's got like 1,000 drum patterns on there, every style, kind of ghetto, house, and techno, and all that stuff. But it's got this little slider on there, it adjusts the tempo. And what Sam typically does is he goes, I have an idea for these songs, and in his head he goes, I have all these lyrics and I'm going to sing it like this, but he often doesn't know how fast he needs to do the lyrics until he actually says it. So we have to play it against the beat, and it's usually too fast for him. So we have to be able to get all of his words in there that he wants to say. So I adjust the tempo on there. We finally find the tempo. We pick a beat. It's some kind of random beat, but we're going to throw it away anyway so that he can fit all of his words in. And down at the bottom here is him, we lay it down and he starts recording in the small booth. Just a word about the booths here. So this guy in the red up here is in that small booth. I have 2 isolation booths in the studio. So you notice that they all have headphones on and then in front of a microphone. Well, what are they hearing in the headphones? They're hearing the music that they have to sing to, their voice, or guitar. And the guy in the top left corner is playing the guitar. They're hearing that so they can play against the rest of the instruments. But that's what they hear. The microphone only picks up their voice, so that I can later on, their voice is isolated, and I can manipulate that on its own. Like, that's the whole goal for this. So that's what isolation is. That's why it's called an isolation booth. Other things that I have to consider: what type of microphone. I have a collection of microphones, and I have to match it to their voice. What sounds good, the preamp for the microphone, even what the room feels like or what it sounds like. Usually, the 2 isolation rooms I have are pretty dead. There's no echoes. This room is kind of echoey. I don't know if you notice how echoey it is, but it's echoey. But I try to minimize those because it sounds weird on a recording. And how hot or cold it is, whether they're comfortable, and then how much they hear on their headphones is what I'm aiming for. That's important. And so now we start doing the recording. We typically start off with a chorus, we start off with a hook, and then we do some verses. Here's what the
Ripple. Espresso.
Give me that espresso. Give me that espresso. Give me that.
Okay, that's a first take. So what he'll do is I'll just run that beat you hear in the background for 10 minutes, and he'll repeat what he wants to say in the chorus over and over again, right? Until he kind of gets it right. And for the purpose of later on, I'm going to start editing this thing and throwing them together. That's the chorus. Here's the what we call the hook.
Espresso.
Okay. And that's an unadjusted rhythm. And I thought, well, that could be a bit of a chant, but we might be able to make that into a melody. I left that as is. Then the verses.
Give me that energy, give me that shot. Making it hot, I only got 1 shot. Rolling up in the drop, speakers about to pop. Espresso non-stop,
I think that was the first verse. Again, very rough, right? His timing is a little off. But we'll do that 4 or 5 times, 5 or 6 times, and I'm going to use that editing for later on. And then we do a passive ad-libs, and it's mostly him going, yeah, right? So I interject that. In this song, I didn't use any of them because it was already kind of busy.
Give me that espresso. Give me that espresso. Give me that espresso.
So then he's done a lot of passes, and I have him come in, sit beside me, and we listen to it. And we kind of scrutinize which ones are good and think, oh, those are good, or we can redo it. It goes back into the booth. In this case, so we decided we're going to do something with verse 3, because here's his original verse 3. Here we are in the Italian Center about to get an espresso shot. It's kind of I thought, I'm listening to this, and there's not much to it.
Italian Center, about to get espresso shot. Smells so good, fresh out the pot.
So these are all very rough ideas that he'd written down, but he may not have fleshed it out in his head. And I said, you know what, if we're going to keep that, we better do something about it. Otherwise, let's not have a third verse. And so we sat and we rewrote the third verse. And on the right here is what the third verse is. And it's about, we changed it a bit.
Rolling up in the benzo, headed to the Italian centro. Gonna have a cappuccino with a couple of my friendzo. Sip my cappuccino, lento, lento. Have an espresso, you feel like Enzo.
Ferrari.
Very espresso, sette come Enzo. Very espresso, sette come Enzo.
Right, so that became the third verse. We sat there and we wrote the thing, exoticized it a bit. And we made it rhyme. Everything is something something oh. Okay. It's generally not recommended that you write in the studio because it's expensive time. But because we were together, and we've done this before, and we've bounced ideas off of each other, and it's kind of fun, right? We just make stuff up. Sente Comienzo really means, I think it means I'm starting at 100, which when you've had espresso, you're not starting at 0, you're kind of up there, right? So that was kind of the idea behind that.
At Shine Center, about to get an espresso shot.
So that's how we developed that verse.
Here we go. In the benzo.
After an hour, we're done the vocal session. Doesn't take much time. So, and he's quick in and out there. 4 or 5 takes of every single section of the song. Now we start editing. So he goes away, and I have to now come up with something that is a song that we've never heard before, not even in his head, what all the melodic parts are. So I have to start with his vocal line, and with the vocal line, it's editing. And so what you heard there, the Italian Centro with the Mercedes, with the benzo, that's the finished edited version of the third verse. And you'll notice all the vocals on there, like it's wide. It sounds like there's 3 or 4 vocalists in there, and there are. I took his takes and I moved them into one take. So, and from that, now I've got sort of a rhythm for the vocal. I still don't have any idea what this is going to sound like, but I'm going to build around that. Usually about 2 to 8 hours of editing just for the vocal line. Sometimes I'll do auto tuning on it, but I'm splicing and I'm moving. This is a screenshot of what it looks like. So each one of these horizontal lines could be one of the takes, and it says like kick higher drums, but this could be take 1, take 2, take 3 of what he's done, and I've thrown them together.
Be sure that's 2 to 8 hours each song.
Just for his rap vocals. So 2 hours is if I'm lucky, but sometimes it's like there's a lot of stuff that's that I want to tighten up, right? And especially if he says, I really want this song to be kind of a hit song. That's a crapshoot. It's like, I'm motivated to have something that sounds good, especially because everything I do after this depends on this being something that I like and I want to build on.
So it's a feel. Are you like listening to him live through the whole 6 hours of the night and actively tagging things that you think are good, or are you going back later and determining whether?
Well, no, he's not recording anymore. This is all recorded.
No, but I mean, when he's recording, are you tagging for good takes of good things?
Oh yeah. There's a way to tag things. Generally, though, there's not that much, and I'll do color coding and show to that. But and throughout that process, I'll coach him. There's a you see in front of there's a microphone beside me that I can talk to him through the booth because he can't hear me, I can't hear him. But yes, I'll send him some coaching, and in fact, sometimes I'll sing along with him to get the rhythms right.
Does he just write you a blank check, or how do you just?
No, it's an hourly rate.
Like you say, 2 to 8 hours.
Oh yeah.
He just says, "I'll just pay for whatever you want."
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's not a high rate.
Demetrio has to stay up late at night.
Well, he wants to hear something good, right? And he kind of trusts me to do something. So yeah, I mean most songs it take anywhere from 10 hours or so up to like 40 hours for a song. So the easy ones are short, but other ones where I really, if I think that there's something there, I'll spend time on it, and I'll let him know that there's going to be some extra time on it. And usually I don't like him to hear a preliminary version because they sometimes get a little bit married to these early versions. I don't want them to hear that. I want them to hear a fully fleshed out version. But yes, it does vary a bit. Okay, here down here at the bottom is an example of one of the edits. So this could be a word called like baby, right? And the way that you might say it is I might want this baby, but the way he sung it in the live recording was baby, right? He's behind the B. So I'm going to chop it here and then move the B up to on the B. So that's really what the tightening of it is. And you do this 1,000 times because there's a lot of cuts. There's sometimes if it's way off, there's going to be a lot of cuts, and that's why it can take a while. So let's see what this does. Oh yeah, that's the same one. That's the same one. Okay, so the rap vocals are done. Now I'm going to start arranging this, which is effectively songwriting because all we have are these talking parts. Okay. My tempo is slow, so these are my input parameters. The tempo is slow, 103 beats a minute. Most songs are like 110 that are hip hop songs. There's no melody. He's just talking effectively. That drum beat that we heard is a throwaway. There's no intro to the song. There's anyway, we don't have a structure to the song, right? So I'm going to form a structure. We know that it's called espresso. That's a constraint here. That there's a Sabrina Carter's espresso. We don't want to make it like that. I want to make sure there's a good groove. It needs to appeal to coffee drinkers. And as Sam always puts it, I want a hit song. So no problem. I mentioned about the tempo here. Tempo. If it's slow, it's easier to do a fast song because it can be exciting just from the tempo. But if it's a slower song like this at this tempo, you have to do something a little bit more creative. Just some examples of slow songs. So here's one that's really slow. It's even slower than this. 95 beats a minute. The Chainsmokers Closer, but it has 2.9 billion streams on Spotify. Right? So tempo is not really that big of a deal. You just have to make it everything else about it. Cool. So hip hop songs, as I mentioned, kind of start at 110. We'll need to work around that beat so that I'll have to do something with that beat so we don't have to go back and re-record his vocal at some faster tempo. I needed to be creative with it as is. It had to be sophisticated, contemporary. There's some ear-pleasing sounds, syncopated, and also that it's got some. It'll make you bop your head or tap your foot. It's always kind of a goal, so it's memorable that way. There's a simplicity to hip hop songs, but it's always very measured, right? It sounds like it's chaotic sometimes, but there's always a rhythmic, measured aspect to the music, and we're arranging against the vocal rap part where there's nothing else as a starting point. I do what's called a reverse songwriting technique where I take the most important or the hooky part of the song and I build from there. So the title, Espresso, yeah, we had that. He had that espresso line, but maybe I can use that. What's a supporting idea? And I work backwards for it. So how am I going to personify that? Are there some parallels that I can do for this? And then find a melodic hook. So and should there be singing, right? He's just got some speaking parts on here. And we have to think about that because it will broaden your audience if there's singing and not just rap. So I have to come up with a hook. It has to be something memorable. So I'm racking my brain and I'm going, well, what can I use in espresso? So I thought about its color, right? It's a black substance. And then somehow the word black gold came to my head. You can be hot or cold. There's something, some attention to it. That was my aha moment. I had to think for a minute because there's what are the connotations for black gold? It has been used, but I don't think in the context of food or a drink. It's percussive, black gold. There's all those pieces to it, which is a positive for a danceable song. The positive connotations about the value of something that's black gold is in oil. And then we resolve it to resolve back to what's called the root. So in Western music, a song often starts with a note that's the root note, and then goes off in a tangent, and then you get back to that note, right? So it's like, here's my starting point. I'm going to go on an adventure. I'm going to come back to this unscathed. That's kind of the visual aspect of the chord progressions in a song. I don't remember what other words I tried, but those are the ones. So the one thing I had to do was I had to check with Shareef. I said, what color do you think is coffee? And he said, black. Excellent. Because if he said it was brown, back to the drawing board for me. So we stuck with black gold. Now, what was I going to do with black gold? Well, I decided to personify it as a female persona. And so I started writing lyrics about that. I'll never leave her. She's addictive. Never gets old. There's a card reference in here, so it'll never fold, because gambling is a bit risky. Never sell your soul, again, to rhyme it. She's bold in her body, meaning as in the flavor, but it's also a body positive image. Hits like karate because of the caffeine. But all of these rhyme with old on black gold. Right? So there's where I'm working backwards from. Black gold, rhyme everything before that to get to gold. What was my melody line? Well, I happen to use this childish melody line, the na 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 na, and I formed harmony lines around it. It's playful. It's also slightly psychotic. Right? It probably has been used in horror films as a taunting sort of melody. Right? I won't play it. I'll never leave. Okay, actually, let's go back there. I'll play it.
I'll never leave her, I know she'll never get old. She leaves the cards on the table, she will never, never fold. Everybody calls, but she'll never sell her soul.
What it ended up being. And this is the whole pre-chorus to the song. So the pre-chorus is a bridge between the verse and the chorus. It's a build-up to the chorus. And the structure was this, where Shareef sings his rap part in the verse, then I do a long, second part of the verse and a pre-chorus, and then we both sing together during the chorus. A broader appeal because it's rap and singing, and the structure was verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus, verse 3, and then chorus at the end. No bridge. Okay, so now we have to build the beat. Wanted a simple beat. What's the bass line going to sound like? What's my chord progression going to sound like? For the chord progression, I used what's called a chaconne. It's an old device that was developed in Spain 400 years ago. And all it is like a short series of chord progressions and then repeated throughout the song. But around it is a different melody, a different instrumentation, everything. But it's kind of basic part. I happen to use 3 chaconnes in the song that varied a little bit. So these are features that I wanted to see in a song, and it's used in a lot of music too. So I had the idea of what I needed. Now I had to get the specific ideas, and this took several weeks. This is a representation of me sitting in the car recording myself, going, "See, that's a good idea." Driving to work sometimes, or going somewhere, and on my phone. Next was. So I had the ideas for melodies and the lyrics, and then what am I going to do for instruments? Well, this requires a lot of sound design because this is a pop song, especially a hip hop song, so there's going to be a lot of synthesizers on this, and I have to go through a huge library of sounds to get the right sounds. Or sometimes I program a new sound. Mostly I have a large set of presets, so it's a pretty lengthy process. I wanted something that I know that I wanted the bass to be this 80s style bass, and you'll hear it in a bit here. Good effect sounds, some ear candy, good kick drum sounds, but a lot of this is meant so that I can translate the sound well between speakers and small speakers. Right? A set of bookshelf speakers are around 30 watts, and they can go up from there. But then your phone has a 8 milliwatt speaker, right? There's almost 4,000 times difference in wattage between them, but it needs to translate well. I should be able to hear this on a small speaker, and it should sound, you get the idea from it even on a small speaker. My instrument arrangements, what should go in there? What are my embellishments? Always have a groove. Are there going to be hidden features? Sometimes, there's usually an economy in putting instruments into a song where everything has to have a place. And sometimes you want something that's just barely audible so that on a subsequent listen you think, oh, I've never heard that before. And so that always kind of keeps it interesting. Then I start recording into a computer, which is called sequencing. And I use a system from the 80s called Notator, and it's run on an Atari Mega system. It's a full-blown system. It's a professional system that was created by a company called C-Lab Software, who eventually got bought out by Apple, and now they're Apple Logic. But the system runs 96 channels of MIDI. MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface, and it's a stream of data. It's a protocol for data that says, the computer says, hey, synthesizer over there, play this note, and play it this hard, and play it for this long. But it doesn't, and so it's like having a 96-person orchestra, and everybody's playing in sync. So that's what's good about the system. It's a very tight timing. Because some other things, like if you want two notes to be played by a guitarist and a bassist at the exact same time, a bad system would not have them hit this at the same time, and that would sound bad. And it's here to control my 50 synthesizers in my control room. So this is the control room here. This wasn't built overnight, so don't fret over that. But there's 50 synthesizers here, and 3 digital mixers. That's these things. So all the sound feeds into these 3. There's more synthesizers in the booth here. This is my workstation. And so there's one dedicated sequencing computer, which is the Atari, the recording computer, and then I have a dedicated orchestra computer. Here's the rack mount. So these are more synthesizers here, routing, more processing, and more routing for audio. And that's the control room. I also have 2 isolation rooms. So there's a big isolation room. It can fit 5 to 6 people, and a drum kit if we wanted to. I have a lot of microphones in there. And then there's a lot of history in this room, but it's also underneath the piano room. So there's we've had lots of people in this. There's multicultural music. Different languages have been spoken. We've had there's a Ukrainian accordionist there. There's a Japanese singer, some Caribbean singers. This is a tabla Indian player, Latin percussion instruments. There's a Norwegian folk singer that came in. So it's quite varied over the years. It's also situated underneath the piano room, which my wife teaches at. So we have to schedule so that I don't have a loud drum going while she has a piano lesson, and she doesn't have a piano lesson while I'm trying to do a critical guitar line, right? So my sessions are usually later in the evening. And then there's the small isolation room, which we had Shareef in there. Fits maybe 2 people, but it's also the pathway into the control room. What I use for software here, the DAW, or the Digital Audio Workstation, I use the Steinberg set of software. Cubase is my audio recording system. Again, this is using an old system. I'm running it on Windows XP. The reason why is I've never had a space in the studio where I could actually change it to a newer system, because I've always had something running. I've always been afraid that if I tried to change, upgrade it, I wouldn't be able to continue working for a month if something really bad, and it's happened. So I just kept it, and I had backups. And the Atari system, I have 4 backups of that. So, and plus this has some dedicated hardware that I don't want to go through the expense of upgrading. And so during this process, I start editing things. So I'm going to start transferring those instruments, all those synthesizers, into the Digital Audio Workstation instead of just synchronizing them from that. So here's a couple of examples. I wanted the backbeat, which is just really the drums. And it's a simple one. That's 1, 2, 4. And then some simple percussion sitting on top. And then here's that bass line that I wanted to do. It's a syncopated bass. Syncopated means that it's not always on the beat, like it's going off the beat. Here's that bass line, and I wanted an 80s bass line. To me, that's one of the hooks for the song. And I'll transfer all of those into the digital audio workstation. I can have anywhere from 15 to 50 tracks of this, so it's a lot to work on. The biggest song I ever worked on was 100 tracks, but that's rare. Absolutely. Okay, now we start recording my vocals. I'll start off with a lead vocal, and then do harmonies. And harmonies, I'll write a 3 or 4 part harmony, meaning different notes from what the lead line is singing, and then do overdubs of those. Here's the lead vocal.
I'll never leave her, I know she'll never get old. She leaves the cards on the table, she will never, never
And here's
Everybody call.
the recording with vocal harmonies.
I'll never leave her, I know she'll never get old. She leaves the cards on the table, she will never, never fold. Everybody calls, but she'll never sell her soul. She knows she's holding her body, she knows that she's in control. She hits
back and forth. So there's the harmonies for my line in this.
I'll never leave her, I'm sure.
Okay. Then we edit this again, moving things around and make so the EQ for this. So each instrument, each voice, everything that gets recorded has a range of frequencies that are characteristic of it. Take for example, the biggest example here would be a piano, right? It's got low notes and it's got high notes, so it'll occupy the low frequency range of sound to the high frequency range of sound. A bass sound, mostly in the low frequencies, right? Violins are typically in the higher frequencies, right? So it's good to know this because we want to know what's called characteristic frequency for each instrument. Because you've got so much going on, you can't just present them all at once. What you have to do is carve out space for each one. Don't carve it out so it doesn't sound like itself anymore, but carve it out so it's good enough to fit 20 other instruments. And so we do what's called a subtractive sculpting. So for piano, for example, wide range of frequencies. But piano has a frequency in the 8 kilohertz range here to say, if I cut almost everything else away, it would still sound like a piano. I don't have an audio example for that, but it's good to kind of know all of these ones. And yeah. You also need some good ears to do this. So keep listening and carve out space. There's also what you can describe certain frequencies. For example, 10 kilohertz, right up in here. It's a frequency that we use to brighten the whole mix. But if you use too much of it, it can get painful. In fact, you can use it for torture. 10 kilohertz if you jack it up. Okay, the muddy description here, 300 hertz. That's an important one because most sounds in a recorded environment accumulate 300 hertz. You got to cut that back because otherwise it sounds like a muddy mess. It almost sounds like this. Airiness and presence; those are other things. It's good to become second nature with these. So it speeds up the mixing process. So we mix everything together. I want to mix it so that instruments that should be loud in real life are kind of loud, like a kick drum, booming sound. It's thick, but it also keeps you on beat. Unnaturally in a recording, the voice is really strong. But in real life, if you had a whole room of instruments, you'd have to scream to be able to be heard, right? So we're kind of making an artificial sound stage for this. But that's kind of the goal of mixing, is to make it sound like, oh, I'm actually listening to something natural. Right. We render the mix. I'm done editing. There we go. Okay. We render the mix. We've now done the mix, and everything is all hunky-dory. Now we're going to go into the mastering stage. We render it to these specifications according to 8 kilohertz, 16 or 24 bit. Takes about 4 minutes. Then we go into mastering. And what mastering does, it's the next stage of it once you've done the mix. And you often hear it as it's sweetening the sound. But if you think about when you've recorded each song along the way, you've spent maybe anywhere from a few days to a month or more on a single song. And the way that you hear it gets skewed a little bit. So when you put all of your songs together, you're going to hear this, well, this mix is really loud, and this one is a soft song. It's really quiet, right? And then if you were to put them together and press play, you're going to have to change your volume. And then I'm going to listen to this song, and the next song is really quiet, so I got to turn that up. The next song is really loud, so it's really loud, so you got to turn it back down. We don't want to do that. We want to hit play and enjoy the whole stream of music, right? And so that's what mastering does, is it kind of not normalizing, but it sort of stabilizes the overall volumes and also sweetens the sound. And we do this with a variety of techniques with different tools. A lot of it has to do with EQ, some of it's compression, loudness, and making things wider if we need to. So it's making some kind of a cohesive audio footprint of the entire album. Okay. The listening environment is important to do this. This is my listening environment. I use 5 different speaker systems for hearing, and everywhere from a cheap set of speakers that are run by a stereo, home stereo system, to some better home stereo system, to this one, which is a studio monitor. These are about $800 a pair, and then the upper high end are these ones, which are $800 a piece. Right, so the higher you get, the better the quality it is. And the reason why they get expensive is that they have what's called a really flat frequency response, meaning that you don't want any color, extra color. You want what you mixed to come out of these speakers. Right, so and I have a switching system for these. Okay. The advantage that we have in this industry is that we can compare our mastered versions of songs to other songs that are already commercially released, which were recorded in $1 million studios using esoteric instruments that are worth tens of thousands of dollars each, and we can compare them just like that. Right? So, it's usually we want to compare it to the same genre of song that we're working in. So we would compare it to a hip hop song, or maybe a hip hop rock song. It's invaluable. Then, once we've done mastering, we render the audio. Here's an example of the pre-mastered. So all the pieces are together now, and this is what it sounds like before mastering.
Pass, espresso shot, got me feeling hot. We do it non-stop, on the spot. Another espresso shot. Another espresso shot. I'ma keep sipping, so finger licking. My heart starts ticking, everybody start tripping. We do it non-stop, on the spot. Another espresso shot. Another espresso shot.
Not a bad mix. Here's the mastered version where we did all the sweetening to it, and I think in this one you'll hear the mid-range instruments, the stuff that's in like the 100 hertz, come out a little bit more.
Espresso shot, got me feeling hot. We do it non-stop, on the spot. Another espresso shot. Another espresso shot.
The bass notes are already pretty heavy on there, so that's what we're aiming for. We rendered 44K. Okay. Effectively, the song is done at this point. I'll do an excerpt of the song. Let's right here. Okay, so we went from this.
Ready, Demetrio? You ready for this? This espresso shot got me feeling hot. We do it non-stop, on the spot. Another espresso shot.
To this. I'll play an excerpt of the song.
Give me that espresso. Give me that.
She'll never get.
Give me that espresso.
She'll never get.
Give me that energy, give me that shot. Making it hot, they only got one spot. Boiling in the drop, speakers gonna pop. Espresso non-stop, we making it hot.
I'll never leave her, I know she'll never get old. She leaves the cards on the table, she will never fold. Everybody calls, but she'll never sell her soul. She's holding her body, she knows that she's in control. She hits you just like karate, she knows she's hot, she knows she's cold. She's like,
pass it espresso, 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 pass it
there's first verse, first chorus. Okay, so we're the song is done, but we're kind of not done everything. Okay, the deliverables for this is a WAV file, not MP3. Then we send it off as a 44. This is CD specifications, fade outs as needed. We send it for digital distribution and for CD duplication as well. So we start the graphics at this point. And here's the specs for the graphics. There's more to do for a CD. He wants to release a CD. Most people don't. Well, I wouldn't say most, but if you want to save money, you don't do it as a CD release as well. Because it's, for 500 run of CDs with artwork, it's about $1,700 to do that. A digital distribution is on CD Baby, it's like $50. But there's a lot more artworks. Here's the album cover for it. The background is AI generated. I use the prompt similar to like busy 5-star restaurant, the kitchen with angry chefs, make it photorealistic. Foreground was a photo shoot that we did. This is actually the one I wanted on here, but he liked the happier kind of looking one. Notice the screwed up fingers on the AI generated chefs in the back. Typically happens. I think I shaved off one hand that had 6 fingers, but this one here has a thumb sticking out. Look at those fingers. They're totally messed up. There were several concepts that we tried as well, including lots of negative space covers, different kitchens and all that stuff in different colors. And the ones with red and green on there, I did it with Lebanon flag colors, but he didn't like those. He happened to like these busier ones. I mentioned CD release I used Pacific Disc Manufacturing for manufacturing, and then CD Baby to do the brokering. They do it on 50 platforms. We released it and make sure that our ownership agreement is set. He wanted to split 50-50. I usually say, I'm the producer. I'm saying, here's the finished version. You market it as you want, but I think he wants me to do some of the marketing for him. On the day of the 24th, I specified that everything gets released, and sure enough, it did. Usually I just say release whenever, and then it creeps out over the span of a week or so. But everything came out like around midnight on July 24th on especially the big platforms. An interesting one here is that I've noticed, so these 2 songs, Butter Chicken and Abu Shawarma, were released as singles a few years ago. And I was told that Butter Chicken has a bit of traction on TikTok with 287 videos, but I was surprised that Abu Shawarma had even more. And it's because Abu Shawarma, we did a music video for it. We filmed it in one of the Jerusalem shawarmas in the Northeast. And he came in dressed up as a desert sheik, with a fez and all this stuff, and it's kind of funny. But we think that there was some synergy there. Having a music video bolstered the visibility elsewhere, and then people decided to make some TikTok videos with it. That's why there's more. So the recording process can be quite varied. We started with just a vocal line, fixed a lot of parts for it, typical, doing the mixing to tightening things up and editing. Make sure that there's a lot of hooks. I usually try to aim for 4 to 5 hooks, and that could be anything. That bass line, I think, is a hook. The saying black gold is a hook. The espresso is another hook, and a few other things. Then we render, we master, we render again after mastering, do graphics, and then we do the release. This doesn't have anything to do with performance or video promotion or what's our next project is going to be. Is it going to be another food project? I think it's going to be, because that food keeps coming into the studio for more ideas. He had one called apple banana or something like that, and then there's at least 10 more songs on there. Here's a short summary of what we did. We composed, we arranged the performance of the recording, the mix and master. Some other learnings for this one, the hip hop genre, they're much less organized than regular songs, right? He comes in with just a few lines of an idea with a rap. The client knowledge of music theory is kind of slim, but I want to keep the energy there and try to guide him through this. The arranging is he lets me do whatever I want or what I think sounds good. And probably because he wants to see my point of view for the song. I never asked for it, but because he could have his own ideas for things too. And only a few times that he says, "No, I'd like this," and kind of directed it. But I use my musical aesthetic. Instrumentation, high level of sound design because it's all synthesizers. And I mentioned already the ownership, and then the business of getting paid up front. For each song that's done, he finishes paying for all the hours for that before we move on to the next song, with a little bit of overlap. Crossover learnings. Since I work in the tech world and in this music world, the term art here, there's a lot of art in software development that the music has. So it's, as much as we want to call it a science, there's a lot of art in what you do. There's a lot of technical knowledge that's needed on both sides of things. We're both creative. Every day we're creative, just as we're creative and trying to create a melody, we're creative in how do we actually develop this functionality. And then managing and coaching. There's as much discipline as there is ego stroking and trying to encourage. Although you wouldn't call ego stroking in the business world, probably. I don't know. Right? So that's it. So listen to it for yourself. It's on all the platforms. The album is called Gourmet. The artist is Shareef. In this today we talked about espresso, black gold. Thank you. Questions? I think on average, let's say 15 now, let's say 20 hours a song a while. So what is that, 100, 1,800, no, 30, 300, 300, that's 3,200 hours. No, 320 hours.
Oh, what?
Well, 3,200 hours, yeah.
How much is it to build a pretty basic studio?
You can do everything on a laptop or on a computer and just do it with software. I choose to do it with hardware synthesizers because it's fun to find them and to tweak them with your hands and actually have the sound because software synthesizers could have a quality about them, but the hardware ones have a kind of a different quality and an aesthetic with the buttons and all that stuff. But it needs a lot more infrastructure. It needs to have mixers and it has to run through a bunch of digital channels to get into the computer. But you could do it in $1,000 to do it all in software.
Like even garage bands, you could do some basics.
You could do basic stuff with
Or
your
even yeah.
But the producer for Lady Gaga, I'm told, did a lot of her big breakout album on his laptop with some high-end software. Like there's good software, there's bad software. Yeah.
Did you draw inspiration from Thriller by Michael Jackson in Africa? Because I could hear a little bit of those.
Not specifically. What I want, it was actually. Do you know the Peloton commercials and the music? It's an artist that did it, but it's the first time I'd heard it in years to use that bass sound. There's a Yamaha synthesizer that came out in the early 80s, 1982, called the DX7. It used FM synthesis for it, and it made that particular bass sound. That's what I used. And I'd heard that Peloton song in the commercials 3 or 4 years ago. That's really cool because it's a syncopated drum and it's just the right sound for this. So, but no, I didn't go, yeah, I'm going to copy Jackson, but I wanted that syncopated bass sound against the steady drum beat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do you have so many synthesizers?
Because I don't collect them for the sake of collecting them. I collect them because I've read about them in the past and I've always wanted that, and I like the sound of it. So if it shows up on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace and the price is reasonable, I'll go and reach out to them and offer them something. And it's like, I've got a Proteus 2500 now. I've always wanted this for the last 20 years. That falling sound that went boom. That's the Proteus 2500. I got it specifically for this project because I couldn't generate that very well anywhere else. So, but yeah, I buy them and I often don't sell them. I just keep them. So And I've got some vintage pieces that have kind of stuck around. And usually I keep them because I never know when I'm sitting working on a song for someone, and I go, this really needs this sound, and I go, oh, that one has it. So I'll go to it, I'll find it, perfect, I've got it, right? So better than me spending 4 hours trying to generate it somewhere.
Is that you like the keys? Was that you and the Shay?
Yes, that's the. I wasn't gonna do that, but I played. It's a kind of a Cuban piano, and I don't know why I did it because it's not a Cuban piece. Oh no, sorry, my mistake. So I mentioned. So espresso, most people say espresso, but I'm told that Spanish speakers say espresso.
So that's wrong.
Yeah, that is
Is that wrong?
Espresso.
I know Italians and everybody else says espresso, but somebody told me, yeah, it's actually pronounced espresso in some parts of the world. So anyway, so he
Not in Ecuador.
I'm not fresh from the pot. In the lyrics, it says espresso fresh from the pot, but you don't have a pot of
It's
espresso.
fresh from
Yeah, you didn't know what he's saying. So, anyway, we
Ridiculous music with espresso.
yeah, I just have them around so I know what sounds to go for, and it's kind of fun to do.
Cool.
That bass sound is not from a DX7. My DX7 died. I bought a quartz synthesizer that has the same kind of brains as the DX7, but has a little more stuff to it. So I was able to tweak it to sound like the way that. But it's two different sounds layered together.
Do you need extra insurance for your studios?
No, it's just home insurance. I don't know if I need extra insurance if I let me turn there's anybody remote? No, okay. Any other questions?
I'm gonna ask my dad how he says espresso now. I'm gonna check.
Yeah,
It's this.
I'd like to know, but I kept verse 2 has him saying espresso, but all the other mentions of espresso says espresso. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, thanks. I saw you had a 909 there. I was just wondering, do you also collect drum machines?
I do. I've never got a an 808, but the 909 has those sounds on there, and I have a couple other Rolands. I have about 12 drum machines and maybe another 4 or 5 drum modules. But I've actually expanded in the last 5 or 6 years. I've expanded my drum modules and drum machines collection a little bit more, specifically so that I can handle hip hop albums, because that needs a lot of variety. Yeah. Good eye. Yeah, that's the 909.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, anything else? Questions? Okay, that's it.
Very entertaining.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
First of all, I gotta say I absolutely love the piano riff on there. That's probably my favorite part. It sounds great. And we're gonna go on Spotify and look now. But so you said TikTok performance on the shawarma and the chicken. How has Black Gold performed on Spotify so far? Do you have those numbers?
No, I haven't. I haven't checked, and we haven't really done any marketing for this yet. In fact, we're going to go to a few sites that actually push them onto radio websites, and then you actually get kind of ratings for this. I've done this for another album as well, so we'll push it that way. But you pay for it, right? So it's not natural. So the real thing that we want to do is to push it on video or social media sites to have them use that way, and that'll bring them to the actual paying YouTube and Spotify sites, because you get about half a penny per play.
Sweet. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Demetrio.
You bet. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Jack.
That sounds in my head.